Greetings and welcome back. Today we'll be talking about the 1997 Janet Jackson album, The Velvet Rope. Now before we talk about the story or the music itself, I'd like to just mention the album cover, which I've always found very disturbing and beautiful at the same time. There's just something about the blood-colored background, her coiled hair that seems a little undone and unfinished, and her depressed head-down stance with her black shirt. It definitely exudes what the album's about and captures the essence of the music, of the lyrics, and of the era itself. It's rare that an album cover can do that to this extent, and I feel that it succeeds tremendously on this. We'll take a look inside as well. This is the re-release gatefold version, and it has all the photos from the album session, but they're rather small. But you can see that they put some effort into all the squares. That was a art direction of the album. Very beautiful, and the back is just beautiful. It just looks like somebody went to it with a knife over and over. If you look really close, it's just beautifully done. It's very disturbing. I love it. And the thing about it is, you know, the album itself has dark moments. It has disturbing moments. And as a longtime fan, you might be shocked. Somebody who knows Janet for the music she does now, looking back, this actually is very brutal and shocking at times. And I think because of that, it is Janet's best album to date. What's weird, as I've always found, is there's a few artists who really went dark. Pop artists who went dark in the late 90s, such as Janet Jackson. Kylie Minogue had her Impossible Princess. Madonna had her Ray of Light. And I understand, like, these artists are still great, including Janet, but there's something about that era about they were just being true and being open. Mariah Carey with Butterfly, and just talking about their pain more detailed, and about self-reflection more. You really don't see that as much today with pop artists. But there's just something about the late 90s that kind of brought that on, that era. That didn't last very long, because by the time Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and NSYNC became popular, that was out. But at the time, for what it is, it's gorgeous. And Velvet Rope was Janet's only her second album of the 90s, which is weird. She broke out with Control in 1986 and Rhythm Nation 89, Janet in 93. And those were her three main albums that had been tremendous success in the mainstream, and also just a tremendous influence on the music scene overall. Artists like Paula Abdul and Karen White, Vanessa Williams, Pebbles, and even Michael and LaToya Jackson, I would say, were all influenced by Janet's sound, along with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's, to kind of make hard-hitting R&B, at times with some social consciousness, and that's what Janet was known for, and just wanting control and wanting to be who she is, and independent and unapologetic. And that's something you really didn't see before. The early 80s of R&B is harder to define. The 70s were so defined by soul music and disco music and funk, whereas in the 80s, disco had died and funk was becoming lighter and jazz was becoming smooth. So Janet kind of brought that hard-hitting R&B back to the mainstream and redefined what R&B was, along with her producers, and I'm sure there's a lot of other artists who contributed. But to me, it's always been Janet, just because I'm not only am I a fan, but I truly respect her. But I just by casual observation. So anyways, so we're going to talk a little bit about the album itself. This came out in 97, and like I said, after multiple years of success with her albums, this one came after an $80 million deal with Virgin Records. So you would think Janet would kind of play it safe, and she did not. And luckily for us, she did not, because it's a beautiful album and it's disturbing at the same time, and I love when things can be disturbing and beautiful, and not just for the purpose of being disturbing, but for a real reason, because it actually touches your heart, touches your emotions, and goes to your core and shakes it. And that's what she definitely did in a lot of these songs for the album. But I must say, not the entire album is dark. In fact, a lot of it's about sex or relationships that are good, or just kind of inspirational type songs where she's left the darkness and kind of wants to move on. So the first song is Velvet Rope, which definitely captures the whole album's idea of wanting to be accepted. I think everybody has this idea that we do want to be accepted, that rejection from others, from ourselves even, takes a major toll on us as individuals. And Velvet Rope is a song that I think truly captures that, because a Velvet Rope is basically how you get to a club that everybody wants to get into. And once you're let in, you're special. You're part of it. And the album and the song itself is just talking about how come into her velvet rope. You don't need the superficial aspects of society. And her velvet rope, I think, is just your own velvet rope. You can accept yourself. And it's a beautifully dark, twisted song. There's a darker production to it, a violin by Vanessa Mae, which is truly disturbing, but it's so beautiful. She truly goes for it in that. It's something you need to hear, how well it's done and how much talent that would take to make that kind of music that really, if anything else was off, would be ugly. But because the way it's done, it's a gorgeous breakdown. The next song we have is You. I'm not talking about the interludes, by the way. There's too many interludes. You is a song about self-reflection. It is perhaps the most dark on the album, or darkest on the album. Her voice is extremely distorted to the point where, as a child, when I heard a sample of the song, I got a little freaked out for a few days, actually. I remember it had an impact on me. I had not bought the album yet, but they were playing it on MTV. And I heard just her voice is like this, but it's a little electronically distorted. And I remember just being so freaked out by it. Anyways, the song is hard-hitting funk type, some dance elements and R&B elements to it. It's one of the more hard-hitting songs along with Velvet Rope. And it's just about looking at yourself and being true to yourself and not bullshitting who you are and not doing things for others wanting to be accepted. A lot of people thought the song was about Michael Jackson and his entire world that was perceived to be this mask, basically. And Janet later clarified that the song was indeed about her, which I totally see that. It's for someone who went through depression, she would want to look at herself and move on and not lie to herself, not wear that mask that pleases everybody and not want to please everybody, basically. The next song is Got Till It's Gone, which was the first single, and uncharacteristically, I can't pronounce that, it came out without a physical single, so it did not chart. In the late 90s, up until around 1999, I would say, a single had to be physically in the stores in America to chart. Radio play didn't matter no matter how much radio play it got, it would not chart on the top 100 until later on. It's a neo-soul song that samples Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi to great success. Janet has a very simple sing-songy type verse that leads into the sampled chorus, which is very simple yet effective. There's also a rap by Q-Tip who there's a lot of influence of his sound on the song. It's very basement neo-soul, very chill, very laid back, very casual, but still very successful in its execution. I would say it's one of her best singles, and the video, it's gorgeous, by Mark Romanek, who did videos with Janet, Madonna, Michael, and Nine Inch Nails, to say the least. Very beautiful song. The next song is My Need, which samples Diana Ross's Love Hangover, and also samples You're All I Need to Get By Marvin Gaye. And it doesn't take the Motown route, it just kind of samples them. It's a very dark song about sexual desires and needs, to the point where it comes off as hypersexual. She just really needs it, and that's My Need. The song is actually about anonymous sex, which I find weird. Madonna's always gotten a lot of flack for her sexuality, but Madonna's never sung about anonymous sex or public sex, or she's never implied that she's wet or anything. Janet does all this. Janet goes for it. But I think the difference with Janet is that Janet does this on her album tracks that don't get released as singles for the most part, and they're not, in the mainstream. Whereas Madonna does it as a first single, along with her book. So But Janet is the songs are pretty explicit in terms of sexuality. I would argue it's very hypersexual in the lyrics, and I love it. The next song is Go Deep, which is not about sex. It's about partying. Has an 80s vibe, which this was released nice in 1997, so that was way before the whole nostalgia for 80s came back in the mid to late 2000s, which is still going strong today with like Stranger Things and stuff like that. It's a good song, very simple, very poppy. You would imagine this would be the first single if she wanted to play it safe, but it's still a good song. It's has a great melody and a funky R&B 80s fun. It kind of sounds like what would have been on Control, but modern, I guess, without being a sequel. The next song is Free Zone, which it's about homophobia, it's about racism, it's about xenophobia, it's about people who are prejudiced and how that's not acceptable. It's very funky. There's a breakdown. I would argue it's one of the weaker songs, not because of the message. I think it's a great message, and I think Janet's pretty good at writing about it. Just there's no chorus. There's not much of a melody, and the music breakdown itself is a little rough. I would have preferred something a little smoother, a little bit more spacious. But either way, there's some influence there from Bootsy Collins and George Clinton. Still good stuff. Next song is Together Again, which was her massive worldwide big single. The second single on the album went to #1 in the US, and worldwide it's one of her biggest singles. In fact, I think in a lot of countries it is her biggest single. I always grew up hearing that Janet wasn't as big as Michael or Madonna in Europe. And now that I live in France, you can't go to a store without finding a Janet vinyl album. If they sell vinyl albums. Yeah, I mean, you can go to the grocery store, but you can't go to the record store or any kind of music store. And there's full of Janet. They have all the Janets. So I think she was more successful doing some more research into it. But I've always gotten that, perception that she wasn't as big. And like she was kind of like Michael's sister. She is known as Michael's sister. Together Again is a song about friends she had lost from AIDS. And it's a beautiful song, very dancey, very 90s house, a little bit of R&B, has a great melody that actually I heard a Sonic the Hedgehog Game Gear game has a very similar melody to Together Again. It was released, I think, like 2 years earlier. It's anyways, that'd be interesting if Janet heard that or played that and then actually went and, did that. I'm not sure. She probably did. Allegedly. The next song would be Empty. This song is gorgeous, beautiful, very simple, not as memorable as the rest. But when you're listening to it, definitely fits the album, definitely something not to skip. It's just a little less rememberable, and definitely a good song. It's about feeling empty. Just in case you were wondering what Empty was about. The next song is What About? Now this is where Janet really gets extremely disturbing, and I want to talk about the song for a little bit. What About is a song about a romantic walk on the beach where a man proposes to his girlfriend, and Janet plays the protagonist being proposed to. It's a very beautiful Latin-y vibe, smooth, romantic, and he asks her to marry him. And then the chorus comes, which is hard-hitting, rock, funk, everything is in your face, and she's yelling at him about every bad thing she's done. The things include hitting her, not holding her while she cries. There's even an implication of rape, because she says, "You kept on when I said no more, please," which is rape. And then how he cheated on her multiple times and kind of, I guess, didn't take responsibility for it. It is, along with You, it's the darkest song on the album, and I would say it's the most graphic, because You's not very graphic, but this song is graphic. Now, the reason I want to talk about it a little bit is because context. At the time, Janet had been married to a man, Rene Elizondo Jr. I probably mispronounced that. They were married for a few years at that point, I think like 6 or 7. So I don't think it's about him. And that's the thing about the song. Because if it's not about her husband, who had already been married to her for years at that point, who is it about? I want to allegedly argue that it could be about her father, who had always had allegations of abuse. And I think the song took that abuse and turned it into a type of poem in a way that you wouldn't think it's about the father, because it's clearly about a relationship. I'm hoping it's not. It's just a guess of mine that I've had, because the song dives really deep, and this person who is portrayed in the song is extremely abusive, and it just kind of makes you think, like, who's it about? And I don't know. But I also want to mention, Janet had already had a few songs up to this that were about these no good men. She had Black Cat in 1989, and then in 1993 she had This Time, which is about a cheating man. And it has they all have this similar hard-hitting song. So there's a formula here, but it definitely goes the darkest she's ever gotten. It's a beautiful song. I love it. It's one of my favorite songs, actually, by Janet Jackson, because she really makes it work. And, like, that's what I'm talking about. I don't think an artist today, I don't think that Lady Gaga could do this. I don't think that Selena Gomez, I don't think that Camila Cabello, I don't think any of these artists could do this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm open to them doing it. I just don't think that the current modern day artists have that in them. And I know when Janet came out in 1982 with Janet Jackson, her debut album and her song Young Love, I don't think people expected that either. But there's always been evolution with Janet to that point where she exposed a little bit more about herself. And I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to say, oh no, Lady Gaga's in this. I'm sure. I'm talking about this extreme, this brutal. This is a special song. This goes for it. So let's line things up a little bit with Every Time, the next song, which is, I will compare it to, again, the song she had in 1993, which went to #1. Every Time was not released as a physical single, but was a video. And again, it didn't chart. Also, Go Deep did not chart, because again, these were not physical singles. They were just on MTV videos that you could watch and go buy the album if you like them. So Every Time is a simple song just about how falling in love again is scary and how she wants to take her time, mostly because of events in What About. So it comes right after it. So you have this hard-hitting song, and then you have Every Time, which is this beautiful, expensive-sounding song. It sounds gorgeous. And, like, I love it, but also, after What About, I kind of wanted more of that type of style of music. But either way, it's a beautiful transition, and it really lifts the spirit of the album. Like I said, the album has dark moments, but also it knows how to pick itself up again. The next song on side 1 is Tonight's the Night, a cover of a Rod Stewart 1970s song. Although Janet takes a little bit more of a personal approach to it, I would say it's more about the imitation of warm, nice, good sex, as opposed to Rod Stewart, which is a little douchey. It also has a more like a typical R&B background. It's the simplest song on the album in terms of, there's no risks taking really, other than the song is directed towards a woman and another, I think, a third person. I'm not sure if the third person is a man or woman or anything like that. But there was a little bit of controversy with that. She says it once, like in passing. There's no strong lesbian tone to it, unfortunately. The next song is I Get Lonely, which was finally a physical single. Here we go. So this was the second physical single after Together Again, and the third single for radio. It went to #3, it went gold, and I much prefer the album version and this video version. They made a remix with Blackstreet in the same year, in '98, and it's horrible. I think you can kind of there's a line between 90s R&B. I Get Lonely is one, and the I Get Lonely remix with Blackstreet is another. I hate the other. I hate that male crooning R&B from the 90s, like Genuine and Jodeci, and I hate that stuff. I really do. I know it's close to what I like, but it's just, I don't know. Just imagine ordering your favorite coffee and they don't have your favorite cream. They have like milk. It's like, okay, you're kind of there, but I don't want this. Anyways, the next song, Rope Burn. That is another transition to her sexual being. It's a song about being tied up and alludes to sadomasochism. It's a beautiful song about being tied up. It's just it reminds me of like a funked up anytime any place. It's a very smooth track, and I wouldn't necessarily call it erotic. The chorus is a little disjointed to be erotic, I would say, but it's sexy. It eludes sex, and I would say it's something probably more for like a strip club than playing when you're making love. Still very good. I love this song. Anything, which is the next song, is actually one of my favorites, and I didn't grow up listening to it. For some reason, I always skipped it. Now I love it. I think it's very simple. It's very quiet. Has little production, little details here and there. Just really beautiful. And it's come to be one of my favorite songs on the album. Not my favorite song on the album, but definitely one of them. It's hard. It's definitely R&B, Quiet Storm type music for the '90s. Very simple. Her voice is very low, and it's not a catchy song, but it's beautiful. I think it's the most atmospheric of the album. You could argue that, but that's what I think. The next to the last song is Special, which kind of reminds me of Michael and just how there's a kids choir at the end, although they don't ruin it. Most kids choirs ruin songs. This one doesn't really ruin it. It's about just feeling special and wanting to be loved, and the fact that everybody wants that. It's not some taboo. It's real and it's legitimate. And Janet's saying to her fans, to the world, it's okay to want to feel special. It's okay to want to feel loved and needed and desired. There's nothing wrong. There's no shame in that. It's human. And it's this culture that kind of makes us have to feel strong about just being on our own. It's okay to want to be loved. It's okay to want to be loved. And I think that's the album's overall message. Not only to be loved, but to be loved with respect and with unconditional love, if that makes sense. Because songs like What About Clearly, she doesn't want to be loved by this guy. The next song, the last song, which is actually the bonus track on the CD, so you have to let Special keep playing silently, and then it will play this song. Can't Be Stopped is a song about Black pride and how the ancestors were kings and queens, and we have that in our blood. Our hereditary is that of power and knowledge and wisdom and strength. And Janet is, I love how I almost say pro-black she is, and that she's not afraid to be like, okay, we are equal and we have our own special flavor, and it just works to a point where I'm proud that she did that, basically, because a lot of artists, when you become a pop star, you kind of become a little whitewashed, and it's hard to have even a subtle political agenda. Look at Beyonce. She did Formation and she got flack. She wore the Black Panthers type outfit at the Super Bowl and she got flack. It's hard. I mean, of course, she still is massively successful, but there are racist people out there. So to be, proud of what you are when you're a minority, I think that that's amazing, and I'm so happy that Janet worked to do this. Even if it is the last song and was a hidden track, but it's actually on this vinyl, which is a re-release. It was not on the 1997 release, and as a kid, I could not find the vinyl because it was super rare. But this is the re-release, and it is not the red vinyl. It's actually just the black vinyl. But I would definitely pick this up. You need to know that, Janet, even though her career got really impacted by the Super Bowl with Justin Timberlake, unfortunately, she's always been extremely talented, has had a lot of amazing songs. Even All For You, which came after this, which is a much lighter album, I still think is very well done, very successful in its goals. And even if a lot of her 2000 albums, such as Discipline and 20 Years Old, weren't very strong, she came back with Unbreakable a few years ago, and I think that's an amazing album. Definitely one to pick up on vinyl as well. But I think if you're going to buy one Janet album, it would be this. If you don't like this, you probably wouldn't like Janet because it has her hard-hitting stuff, has her ballads, and it has her true artistry. It's not as commercially viable as, say, Janet, which I would say is one of her most commercial albums of that era. But I would also say that it's not just one-sided. It's not just dark, it's light, it's sexual, it's empowering, it's beautiful. And few artists, I think, could really convey that type of emotion the way that Janet does. Even though she's a shy person, it seems, there's a lot in here. And I'm hoping that one day we get another era where our pop stars can feel like they can really just dig deep down and expose who they are, all that ugliness. And that is beauty. And I would love to see that again in a new patch where you have like Selena Gomez, Lady Gaga, even Katy Perry, shit, where they just come out and they release something that just, whoa, this is unexpected, you know, because we don't really have that anymore. And a lot of people, oh, that's nostalgia. No, I mean, there's clearly marketing things that look at what people want, and then they kind of force the artists to do that. You know, teen pop came about when they saw that teens had more disposable money, and that's it. So they started releasing teen pop. Velvet Rope was #1, and then the next album was All For You, which was a much lighter album. And I would arguably say it was a little influenced by the trends at the time. Whereas Velvet Rope is a timeless album. Definitely want to pick up. And again, we can show you the inside. And that. And then I'm going to show you one of these because they're the same. They have the lyrics on this cool looking shiny insert, and the back has another picture of the insert, and then the vinyl is just regular black, and you can see the you can see the thing that my yeah, okay. So I just wanted to say, please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it, and please share this video with anyone you know who likes Janet Jackson. I'd love to open up a dialogue about the album. You know, tell me what you think about the review, what you think about the album, and if this inspired you to even listen to the album, tell me what you think of the album after that, because that would mean a lot to me. And like and subscribe, and thank you very much.